Welcome to another episode of the Car Injury Doctors Network. And the Car Injury Doctors Network are a group of doctors that have been specifically trained throughout the United States in how to essentially stop unfair, bad faith, lowball offers in addition to the diagnostics and therapeutics relative to a car accident injury. So today's topic is the 9 categories, the 9 documentation categories that doctors often miss that forces lowball offers, and I would even say 95% of the attorneys are not even aware the doctors are missing this documentation. So let me share with you a case example, and I'm going to use a real case that is real common. It's way more common than what you'd realize, and walk through what is typically happening with documentation that's forcing lowball offers and what should have happened. Because this is a real case. This is a case that I was actually hired as an expert witness to take through. So having said that, again, I'm Dr. Paul. I've opened 77 offices in 20 states. I teach personal injury documentation to chiropractors and teach personal injury to attorneys. And our doctors are real unique in the Car Injury Doctor Network is because they've been trained in high sensitivity documentation, high relevancy documentation. In other words, documentation that actually supports the patient for what they really have. And then we use medically accepted documentation, and then when we put that into a narrative report, we put it into a 12-step formula to tell the story, which, you know, not only having the documentation, but how to coalesce the documentation in a story becomes very significant, whether it's a narrative report. If it does go to a deposition or trial, we have a 25-step formula to tell the story. So having said that, let's go ahead and take a look at today's topic, which is, again, the 9 categories of documentation that doctors often miss that force lowball offers. And let's go over to this is a case, a recent case, but it is so classic relative to what's happening in personal injury documentation relative to doctors. And most of the doctors are not aware that you actually have to take extra training to know and understand and apply this high sensitivity, high relevancy documentation. It's not taught for car injuries in chiropractic college or medical school. And you'll see why here in just a second. So here's the case is, let's start with the end result. So the end result for an injury award is there's 4 potential injury awards. So you got the medical's injury award, you got the possible impairment injury award, possible pain and suffering, and the prognosis for need for future care. And the prognosis and need for future care is oftentimes the largest when you're looking at the soft tissue, connective tissue injury. So there's 4 potential injury awards. Well, the documentation, the bare minimum documentation needed to support those injury awards is number 1, was there a mechanism of injury? Number 2, were there subjective findings at MMI, in other words, permanent? Were there hybrid findings, evidence at MMI, permanent? Was there objective evidence at MMI, permanent? Did the patient reach MMI? Because that's when permanency is established. That takes us to the impairment rating from the AMA guides. And then we do, that's one of the 2 most important categories for the injury award was there an impairment, which brings us to the second most important category, which is, was there permanent restrictions with that patient's activities of daily living relative to that accident injury? Those are called impairment indexes. So those, and then that takes us to the prognosis. So that's the bare minimum categories, but when you have those categories, you essentially have a good case.